Do you ever wonder what really separates the super successful people from, well, everyone else? David Schwartz's classic book, The Magic of Thinking Big, has a pretty bold answer. He says it's not talent, it's not luck, not even how smart you are. Nope, it's something way more fundamental. It's just the size of your thoughts. So let's dive into this idea and see how the way we think literally shapes our world. Schwartz kicks things off with this great little puzzle. Picture this, a sales meeting. The top exec points to this one salesman, a guy named Harry, and he asks the room, how is it that Harry, right there, earns 5 times more than the average person here? So what's Harry's secret sauce? Well, the exec had already looked into it. Personnel tests, they showed Harry wasn't 5 times smarter. Work reports, they proved he wasn't working 5 times harder. In fact, he actually took more time off. And what about his sales territory? Totally average. On paper, there was absolutely no reason for his crazy level of success.
And that's the whole point right there. That one thing, the single variable that made all the difference, was the scale of his thinking. Harry just thought 5 times bigger. But, if it's that simple, what's holding the rest of us back?
Well, the book points to this one single culprit, this mind-deadening thought disease that seems to infect pretty much everyone who's unsuccessful or just kind of average. And Schwartz gives it this perfect, memorable name, Excusitis.
So what is it? At its core, Excusitis is just the habit of making excuses. It's that little voice inside your head that says, okay, I'm not doing as well as I should be, so what alibi can I cook up? The book says basically every failure has a really bad case of it, and most average people have at least a mild one.
And Schwartz breaks it down into 4 super common types. You've got your health excusitis, your intelligence excusitis, age excusitis, and of course, luck excusitis. Do any of those sound familiar? Let's take a look at that first one. This quote just completely shatters the health excuse. It actually comes from a one-armed golfer who, when people asked him how he was so good, basically said, look, the right attitude is always going to win against any perceived physical problem. And what about that intelligence excuse? The I'm not smart enough one. The book is crystal clear on this. It's not about how much brain power you have. It's about how you use it. Your attitude, the thinking that actually guides your intelligence, is way, way more important than your raw IQ. Okay, so if excusitis is the disease, what in the world is the cure? Well, it all starts with one incredibly powerful, foundational idea: belief. You know that old saying about faith moving mountains? Well, the book says to take that literally as a strategy. Schwartz argues that when you genuinely believe you can do something, your mind immediately starts figuring out how to do it. Belief isn't just, wishful thinking. It's the actual trigger that unleashes your power to get things done. And there's this fantastic real-world example in the book. 17 small engineering firms were all going after this huge $5 million project. 16 of them looked at it and thought, nah, that's way too big for us. But one little firm with just 3 engineers, they looked at it and just said, yeah, we can do this. And guess what? They got the job. Their belief made all the difference. So this is the starting line. It's the absolute foundation for everything else, and you can't skip it. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe, really, truly believe that you can and will succeed. Okay, so we've got the internal mindset down, belief. But how does that actually translate into action? What does it look like in the real world? Let's look at the specific things that separate big thinkers from everyone else. And wow, the difference here is just night and day. The small thinker is always focused on the petty stuff, fudging the expense reports, gossiping, winning some minor argument. But the big thinker, they're always focused on the bigger goal: how to sell more, how to lift people up, and how to ignore the small stuff to win the war, not just the tiny battles. Here's a brilliant, super practical tool from the book to stop yourself from getting dragged into all those little conflicts that just drain your energy. Just pause and ask yourself this one simple question: is this really important? Most of the time, you're going to find the answer is a big no, and you can just move on, focused on what actually matters. Now, this is a subtle one, but it's so powerful. We don't really think in words. We think in the mental pictures those words create. So when you use small, negative, defeating words, you create images of failure in your head. But when you use big, positive, hopeful words, you start painting pictures of success and victory, and that's what guides your actions. So let's say you do all this. You adopt this mindset, you start acting like a big thinker. What's the world of opportunity actually look like for you? Well, the answer is probably not what you'd expect. Let me just throw a number out there. 50. 50 times. What do you think that represents? It's how much more competition there is for the jobs at the bottom compared to the jobs at the top.
And this isn't just a hunch. There's real data on this. A personnel executive told Schwartz he gets anywhere from 50 to 250 times as many applicants for low-paying jobs as he does for the high-paying ones. The competition isn't at the top. It's this mad scramble down at the bottom. The road to the top is surprisingly empty. The book has this awesome metaphor for this whole idea. It describes second-class street as being jam-packed with people all fighting each other for mediocrity. But first-class avenue, well, that's a wide-open street with vacancies just waiting for people who have the guts to think big enough to belong there. So the main takeaway here is really clear. Success isn't some locked door. It's wide open. And the key isn't something you're born with, like your family or your IQ. The key is something you get to choose every single day. The size of your thinking. At the end of the day, the power is totally in your hands. You have complete control over the size of your own thoughts. The only mimic is the one you decide to put on yourself. So the real question is, now that you know belief is what triggers the power to do, what's the first mountain you're going to decide to move?